A year ago, I started a long-term city project in City Skylines 2, inspired by my 2 trips to Taiwan that year. With influences from such travels, as well as my lived experiences in Singapore, I set out to document this process of creating my city, as well as document the overall evolution of the game through its early years of development. So in this video, I wanted to do a quick recap of what we've done, with more of a director's cut style commentary. So whether you've been following along since the start or are completely new to this series, hopefully this will catch you up on everything Montai City had to offer in 2025. Going into this project, I was in a space where I wanted to explore sort of mountainous isles and the abundant sun that Taiwan had when I visited. Ultimately, Montai is not meant to be a replica of a Taiwan city per se. I just wanted to capture the more distinctive parts of what captured my attention during the trip. We will, however, have some areas loosely tied to certain cities that I visited. For example, the west of the map is going to be developed in a style of Kaohsiung's Pier 2 district, which was a very lovely place to explore. Our city centre will be inspired by Taipei and New Taipei. And we will also have a port city to the east, inspired by Keelung. Formalities now, every city needs a vision, and Montai is going to be to create a vibrant, livable metropolis amongst the mountains and isles. Throughout this project, I will be focusing on consistent planning principles across the city. The first is to focus on a hierarchy system. So you're starting from the biggest node, which would be a city, all the way down to a household and individual, and between those, there'll be different ways of developing the respective tiers. When it comes to transport, I am focusing on serving different layers of the city through these 3 categories. So for example, a feeder network would be something like a bus or a tram, focusing more on the first and last mile connectivity, versus something like a regional train network that is focused more on transporting you from districts to regions and even larger cities. As someone who lives in a pretty dense city with most of the attractions centered around the city center, I am very curious to explore this concept of creating both livable density but also vibrant density. So it should be a case where your entire city is kind of vibrant enough that people want to explore and go to. With high density, you need to have good transport connectivity with priority to pedestrians, cyclists, and public transit. So hopefully that encourages more people to not use a car. Placemaking is a big thing for me, so I don't really want to have cookie-cutter neighborhoods. I want to have distinct identities across the region that are adapted from its existing geography. Tying to that, we're going to make sure that there is abundant access to recreation, leisure, and green open spaces. In particular with the green and open spaces, you're going to notice through this city that I'm trying to incorporate a lot of green corridors. So as we develop the different areas of Montai, the hope is that these green corridors can provide an uninterrupted way for wildlife to continue to traverse this huge area without the human development affecting it too much. That's the hope, we shall see. So looking around, you will see that this map focuses on several mountains and isles. I've decided to group them into north, south, east, and west, and they all converge around this waterfront, which I'm calling 4 or 5 Isle Bay because I haven't decided yet. And this is going to serve as the main city center of Montai. The first area we worked on in Montai was Cubby Cliff district. So this name came about because one of our viewers in our stream chats actually mentioned that there is a cub-looking shape of the trees, somehow on a different isle, so I don't know how we ended up with that as our first district, but we're going along with it. And as the first development in our city, I really wanted this district to set the tone for how we're gonna plan our urban developments across the city. We started around Cubby Cliff Central, and once again, keeping in mind that Montai City has limited land for development, I want to maintain livable density, prioritizing the well-being of residents over density for the sake of the city's economic growth. So with this, I decided to try this concept of staggering the building heights in this specific neighborhood. So we have lower-rise areas closer to the fringe of the district, And as you go further up, it actually goes taller and taller. The hope is that more of these buildings actually have a view of the mountains facing the other side. We also kind of give a bit of visual breathing room as you reach the central area. Usually a central region might become very dense, which I've experienced personally with some real cities. So I really wanted to explore this idea of having a lower rise center of town. And a key feature of this district is going to be a green spine that cuts through Cubby Cliff Central, and it serves as a connector across the districts as well as a nature corridor for wildlife, and it's just basically a park that people can walk through, so win-win all around. I actually really love how organically curvy the central area ended up being. I have been playing City Skylines, both the old version and this version, in total for maybe 10 years now. And any kind of non-flat terrain always kind of intimidated me, so Cubby Cliff Central was really my first attempt at trying to do something with terrain, and I really liked how it turned out actually. This sort of staggered height situation with all of the different urban promenade and modern architecture buildings, and it all kind of blended together to form a really nice walkable area, which I enjoy quite a lot. Some interesting attractions that we did build into this area. First of all, an incomplete Academy of Music. We will be revisiting this at some point. And then we've got something that I was kind of inspired by when I visited Taiwan. They have these culture and creative parks, which are sort of converted old buildings and stuff where they put in sort of art and entertainment and stuff. And I really love the concept of that. And so this is our first iteration of the concept, and we'll be applying it across the city as we develop it further. Immediately next to Cubby Cliff Central, we have Cubby Cliff Heights and Plains, a higher density, residential focused neighborhood. A key feature of this area is an elevated pedestrian connection. The terrain here is quite steep, so I wanted an easy way for people to walk, and it just makes sense. It means that you can connect from the neighborhood without kind of interacting with vehicles, all the way from Cubby Cliff Central across a bridge through this elevated pedestrian connection to a future health campus further down in the area. This is also our first neighborhood that features bus-only corridors, which we will be applying across the city as well. After working on Cubby Cliff for a bit, I decided to venture into our first district center. So with the 5-owl bay and the city center, each owl will have its own equivalent district center, which will form the greater city center. And each of them will have their respective city center equivalent items, such as like big office mixed-use developments, major attractions, and then big transport hubs. So in West Isle's case, I decided to challenge myself by creating a custom main train station using a lot of these custom assets that are available, as well as a transform tool, which I believe is tied to Anarchy, I'm not sure. But yes, so a custom design integrating with a mixed-use shopping mall, development that has lots of things inside. A lot of these are actually making use of the static ploppables in a way that looks like it is an integrated building, and then you bring in building blocks that make it function and actually generate things like the residences, the shops, and all of that. Oh, and a bus interchange, because we support buses as well here. It's actually quite a challenge to create these sorts of custom designs, because functionally you do still need to work with the existing mechanics of City Skylines. So you need to make sure your trains spawn, that they stop in the right place, that passengers know where to get on. This was a huge challenge, and I would say the first time in 10 years that I feel like a successful design is sort of forming. It is not finished, as you will see across the city. I am leaving things at like 80% completion statuses. I'm gonna claim that it is because, in case new things come out in the game, I have space to apply it. But let's be honest, that is just gonna be a recurring theme of how I create, so look forward to that. Eventually as well, it will lead into this pedestrian-only area that serves as the major district center hub. So there will be lots of like business park buildings, and you'll be able to walk from each of them all the way to the 5-owl bay area. So given that we did not actually fully finish the district center, we decided to pivot into a different district. So this is what I'm terming MediaCity, and this is a city fringe district that offers a transitionary zone from what I'm calling the heartlands to the big city. And so there are going to be more important, larger scale developments here. In MediaCity, you would obviously need media facilities. So This is where our city's broadcasting network is going to be housed. So we're calling it Montai Broadcasting Network, MBN, and this is their campus. So it is a large-scale media campus for television, print, film, radio productions, integrated into the overall district center and community. And it's also going to be linked to a future media college. So that's the plans for this development. I'm loosely basing this off MediaCity UK, which is a real media kind of focused development in terms of having these like large studios, but also open community spaces that are all tied together. I don't want it isolated from the surroundings, basically. So people can kind of like walk through the park and open areas. You'll also have these office towers where all of the staff are housed. Within this area, we're also going to have pretty high-rise housing estates. So compared to like Cubby Cliff Heights, this one's even higher rise. This is just to cater to the high demand of living in the city fringe neighborhood. And in this estate's case, I am basing the designs of how Singapore does their really high-rise public housing estates. Some other spaces that I have marked down but not fully developed include a waterfront and leisure pier district. And directly next to the Media College, we're going to have this lower-rise, artsy shop houses walking district area. This is literally how I wrote it down, so we're going to call it that. But yes, so overall, a diverse range of facilities, amenities, and densities in this city fringe district. If we're getting sick of West Isle, don't worry, this is the last district for now. This is a very different area for the city. It is a port and industrial district. So up till this point, I did not have any area dedicated to industry and commercial, and while we're playing this city with infinite money and mods and stuff, I did still want the city to have somewhat of a functional gameplay element. This was also around the time that the Ports and Bridges DLC came out, so it was the perfect time. This is a key heavy industry zone for the city, kind of like how in Singapore we have a zone called Tuas that is just full-on heavy industry. It's all located in one side of the island. I do want this area to be kind of still integrated with everything else though. I don't want it to become an isolated neighborhood where only factory workers go to, you know? So we are going to have nearby residential neighborhoods and some placemaking attractions and recreation developments. A specific example of why I'm inspired to do this is that when I visited Tainan, there was this interesting museum that was just located in the middle of a science park, because that's where the archaeologists found stuff, and so they just built a museum there. I thought that was a fascinating concept. So on that note, touching on both sides, the functional elements, we've got West Isle Port. This is a logistics hub forming a port industry ecosystem, and the general industrial district. So this houses heavy industry, manufacturing, utility buildings, and large-scale research facilities. I am actually planning to reclaim some land so that we get more space, because there aren't really going to be any other areas that we can make full-on heavy industry. So we have to make do with what we have. And then in terms of placemaking attractions, we've got two different areas. Portside is going to be the hub for this district. We're going to have some shops and connections to the ferry that will be coming in from, let's say, MediaCity-ish areas. And then this is where inspiration comes in from my experience in Kaohsiung, where they have this kind of converted train depot that has become this recreation hub area. We're going to have a similar concept towards the future West Isle Quay Pier area, very, very long name again, and this kind of leads into West Isle Industrial District as well. From the west, we are heading north into North Isle, where we did also create a district, Birdsong District in particular, which will serve as the first neighborhoods along a longer-term North Isle Greater Riverway project. Now, sounds complicated. Basically, you may notice that there is this fancy river along North Isle, and my plan is to eventually develop all of the areas next to it in a way that kind of looks kind of nice and vibrant and well integrated, essentially. So, for a start, we worked on Birdsong Bluff, which is a quieter residential district nestled between a future Ecotropolis, which I will touch on in a bit. This is the key feature though. Birdsong Bluff features the city's first McDonald's. I don't know why this McDonald's makes really weird noises. So I hope their burgers and nuggets are made from proper ingredients, but we shall not investigate. Next to Birdsong Bluff, we have Birdsong Springs, which is going to be the more bustling district center with direct access to the riverway. Maybe a sports hub, I haven't quite decided on that, but importantly, it's going to be a transport hub as well with metro, bus, tram and rail connections. A similar concept here with Cubby Cliff Central. We're having this sort of staggered building design with a nice central courtyard space, I guess, for the district, and it is staggering itself to allow for maximum views of the riverway. Behind the scenes, Birdsong District is actually where we started to experiment with bicycle lanes. After trying a few different iterations of the lanes, I felt like this was the best configuration to keep people safe and also encourage people to cycle and walk. Just touching on this briefly because it's not been developed, but I have identified Birdsong Heath as another neighborhood in this district, probably for residential use. And there's this hill station that I feel has potential to become some sort of lifestyle development, so we shall see what happens with this area. Finally, a very interesting neighborhood to wrap up what we've done so far. This is Ecotropolis 1. So this came around the time that I was really digging into the world of biophilic design. I came across this book and I was just like reading up on it. And so I really wanted an experimental district where I can explore some of these concepts. If you don't know what biophilic design is, essentially it is exploring how human and wildlife and nature ecosystems kind of coexist with each other, the relationships of each other, and how we can better apply urban and human development to accommodate these relationships. In the case of Ecotropolis, we are going to prioritize an uninterrupted forest corridor for wildlife, appropriate incorporation of native plant species to offset impact of development, and building designs that maximize the positive effects of human-nature relationships. Keeping in mind that this is ultimately a game that doesn't really have a lot of these ecosystems programmed into its simulation, so some of it will be make-believe. This is where I came across a theory called the prospect and refuge theory. So basically, humans are drawn to spaces that allow you to feel like, oh, vastness, but also intimate privacy I want to hide from the world. So we have the overall view out of Ecotropolis, but also these kind of like hidden, squared off garden park areas for each of these buildings. I am not an expert in anything I just said, but this is the point of Ecotropolis 1, is that we have a space to explore and experiment and see how such theories can be applied. The long-term goal is that Ecotropolis 1 is going to have this sort of hand-shaped structure. We've done one hand so far with the 5 kind of fingers, if you will. There's going to be another hand, 5 more fingers facing the other way, and you'll have this forest corridor in the middle where we won't be blocking any wildlife trying to move through across the nature reserves. So that is everything we have developed so far in 2025 for Montai City. Looking ahead for this year, 2026, there are a few areas that I have in mind that I want to develop already. So keep a lookout for them as we work on it on stream and potentially in more videos. I'm planning to try and document and share more of this design process through different mediums, probably blog posts, a website. If I can get around to posting it on Instagram as well, and you can have little infographics, that would be cool. So do follow along with me on the various platforms that I'm on. If you're interested to see the process of making these builds live, I do stream the process of building Montai City, so subscribe to this channel and you'll be notified whenever I go live with it. And if you have questions of any areas I've developed so far, feel free to leave in the comments. I would love to have a space to kind of have conversations about city building, urban planning, all of that. For me, the point of doing all of this is that I just want to share the joy of the kind of games that I like. So it would be so cool to have chats and conversations with all of you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Feel free to check out some of the other videos and streams I've done. And until next time, stay safe and stay well.